Oh, I can finally sleep again. Hey everyone, what's up? It's JHsu. Welcome back for another How I Built This video. This is where I show you some of my process for works I've already created, and the hope is that I'll inspire you to create some of your own work, and if you're looking to create something similar, it gives you a better starting point in your own research and experimentation. I apologize, this is a late video, but last week and the past couple weeks have been really crazy at work. We turned out this new launch video and I wanted to take this and break it down a little bit for you, tell you about the process, how we went about creating the concept, and how I filmed it. Also, before we get into this video, I want to say thank you so much to everyone that's been watching the videos. My views have gone up like crazy lately. It seems like a lot of you are still looking for help when it comes to flipping your webcam for things like Chromebooks and your phone, and I am looking into it. But until I do, I'm sorry, just bear with me. But make sure you let me know in the comments what other topics or things you need help with, because I want to make content that is relevant and helpful to you. Plus, once in a while, a video like this, because I just like sharing what I do. But before I get into it, I'm going to play a couple quick clips from the video. If you want to see the full thing, make sure you go to Dance Place's Facebook or YouTube page to check it out. Let's play the video.
Thank you so much for being part of the Dance Place community. Now, introducing Fortitude.
Roots. They connect us. They ground us. They allow us to extend beyond our reach. And as we continue growing, we are learning, we are unlearning. We are curving, we are spiraling. Fortitude. Celebrating 40 years of creation, education, performance, and community. Join us.
Okay, so this was a lot of work packed into a very compressed timeline, so I'm very excited to talk about this because I'm very proud of how this turned out. A little background in case you don't know, I am currently the digital content and social media associate at Dance Place. We're a nonprofit dance theater and studio arts organization in the DC area. Before COVID, we had a different company performing on our stage almost every weekend of the year. We have adult dance classes, we have youth programs, we have community outreach. We do a lot of stuff within the dance world, both locally, nationally, and internationally. I love working at Dance Place. All my coworkers are awesome, and I get to meet a lot of artists that come through. And my job is to help create content to support, promote, and archive what happens at Dance Place. So every year for our performances, we usually have a theme for the season. Last year was Amplify, we've done Discover or Momentum. To announce the season, we would normally create a promo video that told you all the artists, and that's when our website would open up so you could buy tickets. It's a really exciting and busy time for us. And this year, because we're celebrating 40 years, we wanted to include the adult classes, our education programs, everything that Dance Place does into that theme. So this year, we went with Fortitude, with the idea that we have been able to do all the work we are doing now because of all the work other people have done before us, and how excited we are to take all of that and move into the future. So our marketing team, development team, programming, we all met a bunch of times trying to figure it out and eventually came up with Fortitude. We played with a lot of different imagery for this. We thought about using bricks at one point, playing with the idea of laying a strong foundation and building on top of that. We also played, I think, with the idea of this a lot of swirling movement around a strong center point. And then what we ended up going with, the idea of having strong roots that grow into something beautiful. So after we solidified the theme of the year, we moved on to what would this launch video look like. We kind of wanted to create a Nike-esque ad in the sense where it was like really dynamic, beautiful shots with some voiceover work. So we started writing the script for that, and that was mostly headed by our communications associate, Amber, and then a lot of other people gave feedback and revisions and all of that. We had to find a location to shoot, and so we spent about a week Googling different places in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, I wanted it to be surrounded by trees, so you were in this forest. And fun fact, we used an oak tree as a reference for the shape of the leaves and the trunk. In our research, we found that there are a couple native oak trees in DC, and it seemed like a really good symbol of strength and resilience, so we went with oak trees. However, when we were filming, I tried for a couple days to find a place with oak trees to film, and none of the ones that we found really fit what I was looking for, so we decided to drop that. We tried, but it just didn't work out. The voiceover was done by a coworker, Allison, who has an amazing voice and is an actress and has done voiceover work before. And actually, it was really funny because of COVID, we couldn't meet up to record, so I dropped my recorder off at her place, and then we met through Zoom so I could show her how to set it up and record and all that, and it turned out great. Now, going into filming the content, I had to meet up with each dancer separately, and we filmed at Rock Creek Park. I used my Canon 5D Mark IV and the DJI Ronin S gimbal for the entire thing, and my main lens was the 16-35. It let me zoom out enough to really capture the whole environment and zoom in enough to get a closer, more intimate portrait shot. There were also a couple times that I used my 24-70 to get even tighter or to zoom in more on a leaf or a branch, but for the most part, I stuck with my 16-35 lens. And I shot everything at 60 frames per second because I knew I wanted to slow everything down later in post-production. And then after I filmed everything, I took it into Premiere Pro, put it together, and then added the animations and text in After Effects. And so let's jump into that right now, and I'll talk us through it. Okay, so this intro part is with our executive artistic director, Christopher, outside of Dance Place. This was actually the first time I got to use a teleprompter. We finally got one for work. Oh, I've been wanting it for so long, and it helped so much. It was actually really cool. The tablet that you put underneath the teleprompter, it had voice recognition. So as he was saying the script, it was scrolling for him automatically. So I didn't have to worry about that. I could keep on monitoring the audio and video. The hard part was there was a lot of construction going on.
Celebrating 40 years of creation, education, performance, and community. The complexities of the ongoing pandemic,
and so I couldn't get him as far away from the camera as I would have wanted to really get the framing, because if he got too far away, it was so loud around him, the teleprompter, the tablet wouldn't be able to hear him. So that was a little unfortunate. I think in an ideal world, I would have wanted to have him a bit further away, much more zoomed in, so it was a more compressed image, but I think it worked out pretty well. Another thing you'll notice, the angle is a little bit low. I would have wanted it a little bit higher, a little bit more eye level, but because of the angle of the sun, I couldn't get a good angle without getting a really weird bounce reflection into the screen. And actually you'll see here, if I play it a little bit, there's that one little spot here that doesn't move. That's the sun. That's not like the lens was dirty or anything. And unfortunately, that was so small, I didn't notice it until I brought it back into the computer. But I think it's very not noticeable. He is mic'd, so that did help, and I did a lot of work in Premiere Pro to clean up the audio, even though there's still a couple really loud moments that we couldn't get rid of. Now, going into the actual dancing, the music is through a service called Soundstripe. We subscribe to it. It's a yearly subscription, and it gives us a full usage for anything we want to use. So I use that music for everything I want. This is not a sponsorship if there are lots of other great services, but the one that we ended up using is Soundstripe. And then all of this was really fun. I edited everything in Premiere Pro, and then the reason I love using Adobe is they're very interconnected. So I use something called Dynamic Link. So I would edit my sequence in Premiere Pro, and then I would import that sequence into After Effects. But with Dynamic Link, I could go back and make an adjustment in Premiere Pro, and it would automatically update in After Effects without me having to export the video again. So as I was adding the text, if I realized, oh, I needed more time for this part where I needed to cut sooner, I could go do that in Premiere Pro and then go right back into After Effects without having to export everything. And that really, I think, sped up my workflow. That was really helpful. And for After Effects, basically everything is layers, keyframes, and masking. So layers, you're stacking things on top of each other, right? So your text goes on top of your video. Masking is telling certain pieces of content to only show up in this certain shape. So whether that is the text or whether that's cutting out the shape of the person so the text looks like it's behind them. And then keyframing is telling the values of something to change from point A to point B. So maybe your position starts at here and should end up here at this time. That's basically all After Effects is. It can get really complicated with those concepts, but that's really everything you're doing is layers, masks, and keyframes. So for example, for this shot, I had the text there, and then I have the blacks, I don't know what that is, video, but I'm masking it so it only shows up where the text is. So it's actually white text and it's just a black video, and so the black is showing up on top of the white text. Oh, this was actually a really fun shot. So in hindsight, I maybe wouldn't have done this, but I had Sarah, the dancer here, I had her kicking the leaves across the camera, like sideways, and it wasn't reading the way I wanted. So I was like, ooh, why don't you try kicking it at the camera? And I didn't think she was gonna kick that hard. So as I was slowly moving, she sweeps. Oh! And in the original footage, you actually hear her cursing right afterwards, because she realized how hard she went, and it like literally my camera got covered, and so did the gimbal. I did not have a filter or anything in front of my lens, which is why I was like, in hindsight, I would have maybe not done this shot, but it turned out well. My lens is fine, but you know, I could have scratched the lens and that would have been really bad. So I'm glad it turned out well, but anyways. This one was really hard to mask out. If you look at her head, you'll see that I didn't do a perfect job, and because it keeps shifting, it almost looks like it flickers, but I think it sells because I added this texture on top, so it's also flickering, so it almost looks like it's part of that effect, even though like, oh man, looking at this now is cringy. But if you looked at her cheek there, you see how it's flickering a little bit? Not the best. This was great. And then I think it was really important to find a balance of some really animated text and some just like still is just there. So I didn't want to go too crazy, too gimmicky. I think I found a good balance. I don't know, let me know what you all thought after you see the whole thing. But then for the shots like this where it is more or less very simple, I was actually tracking the movement of the tree, so it looked like it was kind of moving in the space with the camera. This shot I was actually very proud of. This is the one shot where I saw Sarah, while we were filming, do that back bend, and I was like, ooh, wait, the script, there's a wee break, and that'll be perfect. So we choreographed that. I started with her, and I moved down really fast, and we did this a couple times. Oh, I forgot to mention, when we were filming, I basically had the same few prompts with every single dancer. We started with just them looking up and breathing, and then they slowly just started improvising more, a little bit slower, and then getting faster and faster, and I did a more like portrait, waist up shot, and then a full body zoomed out shot for all of them. And this is hard because you never really know until you're there, but I feel like I didn't really quite get into my full like peak stride until the third session, which is just so sad. I didn't realize how drastically light changes when you're in a forest based on, I guess, how dense the foliage is. So I had found a location, it worked well, there wasn't a ton of stuff on the ground, and that's where I filmed Sarah, this dancer, on the first day. It was kind of dark, but we made it work. We got there early enough that it was fine. And then, but by the time the sun started to go away, it was like super, super dark. But then the next day, I actually had to park somewhere different, so I went to the same spot through another path, and we passed by a spot that was just as open, but it was so much brighter, and so we ended up filming there. And then I went back to that same spot the third time, but then we saw that giant tree that you see Crystal dancing on or walking across, and I was like, oh, I wish I could have seen this on the first time, but the forest is huge. I thought I had found a good spot, and so we made it work. Everything actually turned out well, I think, because then each dancer had a pretty unique environment. They weren't all in the same spot, which was the original plan, but I actually think it worked much better this way to show that each dancer was kind of in a unique space. So all in all, it turned out well, but I do wish I had maybe walked around more to find some brighter lit spaces for that first time. All these are really pretty. I'm so happy with how this one turned out. Alright, I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit. And so okay, this gave me the most trouble when it came to masking because Crystal's hair keeps moving, and so if you look, you can still see the green underneath. But I mean, basically for all of these anytime there's a person in front of the text, I had to cut them out frame by frame, and I think I recorded a little bit of that at some point, so I'll put it on top of this while I'm talking. But it was just hard because I didn't realize that when you are filming in slow motion, it's harder to get away with bad masking. When it's fast motion, frame 1 to frame 2, there's so much movement that you can get away with it a little bit more. With slow motion, everything is really like side by side, so you can clearly see where you went wrong. So lesson learned. I think I still would have filmed it in slow motion, but I just didn't realize how hard it would be. So yeah, keep that in mind if you're ever going to do slow motion and try to mask people. And then this effect actually was done in Premiere Pro. This is the one effect I did in Premiere versus After Effects. Basically, I took this video, layered it on top of this video, and then I cropped it and I made the mask follow the edge of this tree. So as the tree is moving across the frame, it's revealing the video underneath. This one, actually, I was pretty happy with the masking, except for like maybe the little part here by Crystal's head. But because there's more movement, I think it's easier to get away with this effect, basically. And then here, you'll notice I faded out the width, so it looks like Crystal's moving through it at the very end. And then the rest of this is just honestly very pretty. I'm so happy with how this footage turned out. It was beautiful. The music worked well. And I forgot to mention, but actually when we once we figured out the concept for the video, I went and did a full test video with my intern Jonah. She wore a mask and I just handheld everything outside of Dance Place. I like filmed a tree on the street. I got some clips of her dancing, and then I tried the pulling out of the screen idea that I'll talk about once you get to there in the video. But that was kind of like a proof of concept that I could send to everyone to make sure like, hey, this is what I'm going for, just making sure this works before I go film the dancers in the forest. So that helped a lot. I think if you are ever trying to do a bigger project, trying to do a demo always is helpful. I do that every year, whether it's like, okay, I know I want to do this animation idea, let me make sure I can do this correctly before I really invest in it. Because if it doesn't work out or it's not what I thought it was, then you can shift before you get too deep into the project. Alright, let's see. Let's jump forward a little bit to the next animation part. Oh, and so actually one thing I do want to point out, you'll notice as we go into it, then I start to add some storytelling elements into it. We have Mama Sylvia walking through the forest, then ducking under leaves, and then looking up and showing little bits of the trees. And so the idea is the focus is slowly, gradually going up into the trees, because then we end up looking up at the trees with the Fortitude logo. So I think that actually worked really, really well. I'm very proud of that. It's a little subtle, but I think it comes across. Okay, now this logo. Oh, this took so much time. So every single leaf I had to mask out separately and then tell it where to go, when to go, how fast to go, and then I added a rotation in to make it look natural. I have an earlier rendition when I was just doing like a test try, and it looks so bad because the leaves just like magically float to their spot. There's no curve, there's no rotation. It looks so terrible. I'm very happy with how this one turned out, but it just took a lot of time. Hang on, let me show you this real quick. So these are all the leaves, and you'll see that these are all the different travel paths, and I even color coded them to help me organize the leaves a little bit. And if I go like this, you'll see each one here, there's a position and rotation. This is, oopsies, hold on. So there we go. So you'll see here, these are all the keyframes I did for just the leaves. And then if I show you all the layers, I also did the same thing for every single branch and the trunk and the roots and the letters. So these are all the letters. And then here, I actually had to cut up each branch. So here, like LB is left branch, CB is center branch, and RB is right branch. And so I had to do a separate mask for each element to let it grow. But I think it turned out great, and I'm very happy with it, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. But it's just crazy how I want to say at least a full 24 hours worth of animations went into a like 10-second video clip. But going into this concept of pulling out of the tablet, this was an idea I was really excited about. Because of COVID and the idea that we've had to turn everything digital, we've had virtual presentations, our dance classes are on Zoom, and we don't know how long we'll be. The idea of starting in front of the building and then ending in front of the building, but all of a sudden realizing you are seeing this inside the digital platform kind of goes into the idea of like, we are here with you even though we are online. So I thought that was, I don't know if people picked up on that, but that was the concept I was going for. And I found a video on YouTube tutorial for this, and actually when we were filming this with the tablet, I just tore up a sticky note and taped it onto my tablet screen. So then as I'm putting it into After Effects, I tracked those points to create a 3D plane. And I took the final finished video from the forest, and then I told it to track those points. So as it's pulling back, it's rotating, it's getting smaller. It looks like it's actually part of that screen. I had to adjust the keyframes a little bit, but that's basically the concept. And I think it turned out really, really well. I just wish maybe that we had filmed it a different time of day or something. The reflections on the border of the tablet, I feel like made it a little bit harder, but I am very proud of myself of how this particular shot with the animation and the pulling out of the screen all turned out. And then here, same idea. I'm having all the text track a specific spot and then I rotated it to make it look like it was stuck onto the building. And then for the 0, I created a dance mask to follow this, so it looked like it was on the glass and behind this. And I actually even lowered the opacity a little bit to make it more translucent, to make it look like it was part of the glass. And then at the very end, for this animation, same idea as the tree, I had to tell every single leaf where to go, when to go, rotating, all of that. So actually, let me show you that real quick. So here for that reveal, here are all of the different leaf layers, right? So I'm telling them where to go, how fast to go, all that. But because I knew basically I just needed enough to not show any empty space to hide that reveal, I made a bunch. And then I duplicate all of them and turn them into this composition here. So if I make this invisible, that's what that looks like, which is just a copy of all of these, but then I flipped it. So instead of leaf A and copy of leaf A going side by side and rotating at the same time, I took this one and flipped it underneath, so it was going this way and rotating a different direction. So I doubled all of the elements without it looking like it was a copy. And then I still went in and I changed some of the keyframes. I added some, like that. But that saved me a lot of time. And then on top of that, I added these here to just add a couple more in the beginning and at the end. And then on the very bottom, it's just a black solid that is wiping to do that reveal. So that's how I made this launch video. I hope you all found it helpful. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the full video, or if you have questions on how I did specific things. Make sure you like this video, hit the subscribe button so you know when new videos come out, and I'll see you next time. 5, 6, 7, 8.